Under the waves. Grief and isolation hit different when you're trapped alone at the bottom of the North Sea in an alternate 1970s timeline. Sure, the underwater exploration handles great, but the way the ocean physically manifests the protagonist's psychological trauma turns routine maintenance tasks into genuinely terrifying oxygen-starved nightmares. The interface can be slightly clunky when managing inventory inside your sub, but the atmosphere completely makes up for it. For $1.49 right now, a 95% price cut, you're getting a narrative experience that rivals blockbusters charging 20 times that amount. Peak. Precision platforming doesn't usually mess with physics this much. The gravity actively shifts depending on the angle of your last jump, forcing your brain to rewire how it calculates momentum. It's infuriating for the first 20 minutes, and then it suddenly clicks. Before you know it, you're flying through abstract geometry at light speed without touching the floor for entire levels. It demands absolute perfection, so expect to see the death screen constantly. Catching this at $3.99 feels ridiculous considering the sheer volume of speedrun strategies players are still discovering. Arco. Most tactical RPGs give you a clean turn order. This completely tosses that out for a simultaneous action system where you lock in your choices and pray you predicted the enemy's movement correctly. The resulting chaos turns every skirmish into a high-stakes, magical Western shootout. You will absolutely accidentally blow up your own party members while trying to master the timing. The Desert Revenge story takes some incredibly dark turns, and seeing the entry fee drop to under $8 makes taking the punishment weirdly irresistible. BlazBlue Entropy Effect. Fighting game mechanics usually don't survive the transition into a roguelite, but the combat here is so fluid it makes standard action games feel stuck in mud. The legacy systems let you strip overpowered abilities from previous runs and inject them into entirely new characters. You end up creating these hilariously broken, screen-clearing monstrosities that feel like you've hacked the code. The translation has a few rough edges, but nobody is playing this for the dialogue. Grabbing this caliber of animation and tight controls for $11.99 is easily one of the smartest buys of the sale. The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow. Rural English folklore rarely gets translated into horror this effectively. You play an antiquarian digging up a cursed mound, and the tension ratchets up entirely through oppressive atmosphere and deeply unsettling conversations with hostile locals. It completely skips the cheap jump scares, relying instead on a slow, suffocating dread that makes you physically uncomfortable clicking the mouse. Classic adventure game logic rears its head occasionally, requiring a bit of trial and error, but paying $6 to feel this genuinely disturbed for an entire weekend is a transaction you won't regret. Pi. Sometimes a game drops a bizarre physics engine in your lap and refuses to explain itself. The momentum mechanics here are heavily dependent on how you manipulate environmental debris, turning simple traversal into an unhinged, chaotic puzzle. The learning curve is steep, and the controls will actively fight you until you understand the underlying logic. Once you do, you're slingshotting across the map in ways the developers clearly never intended. Snagging this much raw, experimental freedom for less than $5 is basically pocket change for the laughs it delivers. Loddlenaut. Power washing an alien ocean shouldn't be this addictive. You're literally just scrubbing toxic goop off coral reefs and recycling garbage, but the progression loop hits that exact dopamine receptor usually reserved for massive management sims. Raising the little axolotl-like creatures and watching the ecosystem heal around your base provides an incredibly satisfying visual payoff. It's undeniably on the shorter side, which makes grabbing it at $5.99 the perfect price point. It's the ultimate palate cleanser to wash away the stress of whatever competitive shooter you've been losing at. Gone rogue. Thief simulators usually punish you for messing up. Here, getting caught just triggers an entirely different set of messy, improvised survival tactics in a brutal alternate history Europe. The way NPCs react to missing objects, even days later, makes the world feel surprisingly paranoid. The guard AI occasionally glitches and gets stuck on furniture, which breaks the immersion slightly. However, plotting out the perfect heist and executing it flawlessly hits an incredible high. At under $5, stealing digital valuables has never been a cheaper thrill. Vampire Hunters. Imagine a boomer shooter, but instead of swapping weapons, you just stack them on top of each other until you're carrying a wall of 14 different guns firing simultaneously. The recoil management becomes a chaotic minigame in itself as you mow down waves of gothic horrors. The visual noise on screen reaches absolute absurdity by stage 3, completely blinding you with muzzle flash and explosions. It's entirely brain dead in the best way possible. Paying $4.49 to become a walking artillery battery is the easiest purchase decision you'll make today. Snufkin Melody of Moominvalley. Music isn't just a soundtrack here, it's a tool for environmental rebellion. You're stealthily dismantling hideous, rigid parks built by a tyrannical park keeper, using different instruments to manipulate wildlife and alter the landscape. It captures this profound, anti-authoritarian coziness that feels incredibly rare in modern releases. The puzzles won't exactly fry your brain, but the hand-painted watercolor aesthetic is stunning in motion. For $10, it provides a quiet, melancholic atmosphere that sticks with you long after the credits roll. Urtuk, the Desolation. Extracting mutations from the corpses of your enemies to graft onto your own troops turns this grim, dark tactical RPG into a twisted biology experiment. Your soldiers constantly evolve, gaining bizarre passive abilities that completely break the standard rules of grid combat. The overworld map can feel brutally unforgiving if you mismanage your medical supplies, but considering the insane depth of the character customization, seeing it heavily discounted down to $1.81 is absurd. You'll spend more on a terrible cup of coffee than on 50 hours of ruthless tactical survival. Gordian Quest. Deck building mixed with party-based dungeon crawling sounds cluttered, but the synergy between your heroes' decks makes standard RPG combat feel outdated. Positioning matters just as much as your hand, and stringing together a massive combo that wipes out a boss before they even take a turn is immensely satisfying. The loot system can get a little overwhelming in the late game when you're managing gear for a massive roster. Still, dropping $6 for a campaign that easily demands 80 hours of your time is an absolute steal. Jack Move. Cyberpunk JRPGs are rare, and this one condenses a sprawling 30-hour genre formula into a perfectly paced 10-hour campaign with zero grinding. The battle system relies on a digital hacking grid that forces you to constantly balance offensive software with cooling down your hardware. You won't find the massive 3D cutscenes of bigger titles, but the pixel animations during special attacks are wildly expressive. Finding a turn-based RPG that respects your time this much is rare. Snagging it for $5 is basically a no-brainer. Katanaut. Deflecting bullets with a sword is cool, but doing it in zero gravity while desperately managing your limited oxygen supply is incredibly stressful. The physics dictate that every swing propels you in the opposite direction, meaning a missed attack sends you drifting into laser grids. It turns melee combat into a terrifying dance of momentum and precision. The difficulty spikes hard around the third sector, heavily punishing impatience. Getting this kind of physics-based action for $5.57 is perfect for anyone wanting their reflexes violently tested. NanoApostle. Boss rush games live or die by their combat feedback, and parrying a massive mechanical monstrosity here sends a shockwave that rattles your actual teeth. You play a test subject using a lethal nanite parasite to exploit specific destructible weak points on screen-filling enemies. The parry timing is mercilessly strict, and missing it usually means instant annihilation. It strips away all the dungeon-crawling fluff to focus purely on high-intensity duels. Taking a gamble on this at $10.99 pays out massive dividends if you love mastering complex attack patterns. Squirreled Away. Managing an economy based entirely on buried acorns while dodging hawks and organizing a literal squirrel mafia is exactly as stressful as it sounds. The simulation tracks exactly where you bury your stash, and winter genuinely alters the map geometry, forcing you to dig through snow to survive. The late-game tech tree gets surprisingly complex, even if the UI feels a little cramped when your population explodes. For $7.49, watching your heavily organized rodent empire accidentally collapse because of a single fox is hilarious entertainment. The House of Da Vinci 2. Tearing apart mechanical puzzles in a beautiful Renaissance setting makes you feel like an absolute genius. You aren't just finding keys, you're using a time travel mechanic to see how these impossible contraptions functioned in the past to solve them in the present. Some of the hidden switches are so tiny, they blur the line between a puzzle and a pixel hunt, but the tactile sensation of sliding brass gears and unlocking hidden compartments is flawless. Dropping $3 for this much cerebral satisfaction feels like stealing a museum artifact. Everdell. Board game adaptations can feel sterile, but watching your woodland city physically construct itself on the screen brings the tabletop mechanics to life perfectly. The worker placement engine building is incredibly tight, forcing you to constantly adapt your strategy based on what cards your opponents draft. The AI can be a little predictable on lower difficulties, but multiplayer matches are viciously competitive. At $10, it completely replaces the need to spend $70 on the physical box, plus you never have to clean up the pieces. Victory Heat Rally. If 32-bit arcade racers got injected with modern drifting physics, this would be the result. The sense of speed is blistering, and nailing a massive drift around a hairpin turn fills your boost meter with this incredibly loud, satisfying visual flair. The rubber banding AI occasionally robs you of a hard-earned first place, keeping the races aggressively tight right up to the finish line. For $12, you're getting that pure, unfiltered couch co-op racing.